Good evening out there. 6 o'clock. It's Tuesday, April 21st. I was glad I set my alarm. Well, I have my alarm set every day for like 5:45, but I completely was spacing it today. And I was glad for my alarm today because I was working on this big project for school, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, I need to get ready for Read Aloud. So here I am. Did anyone see that crazy hail outside? That was pretty wild. Um, but it seems to have calmed down now. But here we are. Okay, we're going to keep reading our new book, which is Ida B. and her plans to maximize fun, avoid disaster, and possibly save the world by Catherine Hannigan. So, when we left off yesterday, Ida B was leaving the doctor's office with her parents because her bright invention was to make a soap mask so she wouldn't have to keep washing. So she put dish soap all over her face and she had a bad reaction to it. Um, but she hadn't told her parents before they went to the doctor. They thought it was like scarlet fever or something like that. So that's where we left off. They were leaving it, and she promised never to use dish soap on her face again. And we are going to pick up with chapter 4 today. Okay? Okay. On nights when he was done with the day's work and we were full up from dinner, and Rufus was moping about hoping for some company and travel, and the stars were all out shining and looking like they were so close you could pick them, Daddy might say, Ida B, let's take Rufus and go look at the world while it's sleeping. All right, Daddy, I'd say back. And we'd head out to the fields and orchard and around the base of the mountain. Rufus running ahead, seeing how many things he could stick his nose into in one night without getting stuck back or stung or sprayed. This was when my daddy would tell me deep and abiding truths, so I tried to stay as still as someone like me can and listen. One night, as we were walking along, Daddy took a deep breath, the kind that sounds like you're smelling something when the air's going in and you're sighing when the air is coming out. And it means something important's about to be spoken. Ida B, he said, to make sure I was paying attention. Yes, Daddy, I let him know that I was. I want you to think about something. All right. Daddy stopped walking and then I stopped walking. Because sometimes if you're saying something deep and abiding, you want saying it to be the only thing you're doing and listening to it to be the only thing the other person's doing. We both looked straight ahead at the fields and the mountain and the sky and then, excuse me, sorry, then he began. Ida B, someday this land is going to be yours. Yes, Daddy. And the law is going to say that you own this land and you can do pretty much what you want with it. Yes, Daddy, I said again, because I knew he wasn't going to go on till I talked too. Like in church when the minister waits for you to say amen before he gets on with his preaching. But I want you to remember this. We don't own the earth. We are the earth's caretakers, Ida B. Here he took another one of those deep breaths. I'm grateful we have this land, and grateful that you'll have it too. But we don't own it. We take care of it and all the things on it. And when we're done with it, it should be left better than we found it. Now you should know that my daddy is a very intelligent man. Most of the time we don't disagree about much except things like bedtime and whether children should be forced to eat certain foods. So while I agreed with most of what he said, I was thinking he might want to reconsider one of his ideas. And I was just the person to help him do that. Hi, Mom. When Daddy talks like that, though, I don't say anything right away. He looked so serious when he said it. We are the Earth's caretakers, Ida B, staring off into the sky, wiping his brow and nodding. I knew I needed to wait a bit before I shared Ida B's golden and supremely important nugget of wisdom. So we walked for a while. But when we were headed back toward home and we got to the orchard, I said, Daddy? Yes, Ida B. I do believe there are enough apples growing in that orchard that we could have pie every day of the week and send a few to the Queen of England as well. Daddy said. I gave him a few minutes to ponder that thought. When we were passing by the brook, I said, Daddy? Yes, Ida B. Sometimes in the summer, I'll get to sweating and stinking so bad that Lulu will hiss at me when I get near her, and even Rufus will run away. So I'll come on over here and lie down in the brook with my clothes still on. I'll let its coolness roll over me, and I'll feel the stink rolling away too. And Daddy, it is delicious. Daddy just smiled. I gave him some moments to let that idea sink in. By the time we got to the edge of the fields, the moon was shining so bright the path looked like it was glowing, like the moon was showing us the way home. So I just pointed, and Daddy nodded his head like he knew what I was meaning. Once we were on the path, I said, real quiet, Daddy? Yes, Ida B. I stopped walking. When Daddy saw what I was doing, he stopped too and waited. I think the earth takes care of us too. Well, Daddy looked at me kind of surprised. He stood there for a bit, rubbing his chin and considering. Finally, he smiled and nodded and started walking again, and I came with him and he said, I think you're right, Ida B. And we were quiet the rest of the way home, just enjoying the breeze that was blowing through the stars. This is one of the reasons why I picked this book. Tomorrow is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. It has a lot to do with connecting to nature, so that was one of my reasons behind choosing this one. Okay, chapter 5. This is what I eat for breakfast every single day. Hot rolled oats with raisins and milk, no sugar. Even in the summer and especially in the winter. Every once in a while, Mama will ask me, don't you want a little variety, Ida B? Now, when we get up, most times it's still dark outside. Sometimes at breakfast, I'm so tired it's all I can do to keep my head propped up by my arm on the table. And I only open my eyes to make sure the oats are on the spoon and heading toward my mouth. But I close them while I chew. I'm not ready for deep thoughts or surprises. So when Mama asks me that, I say, it's too early for variety, Mama. This is what I have for lunch every single day. Peanut butter on one slice of bread, milk, and an apple. Preferably a Macintosh because they're tangy with the thick, thin skin, which Daddy says resembles me at times. Don't you want to try something different, Ida B? Daddy will say. Well, by lunchtime, I'm wide awake and I've already been busy doing my chores and learning and having some fun. I've got a list of things that I can't wait to do in the afternoon. My head is filled to the rim with interesting ideas and plans, and that's exactly how I want it to stay. There are too many things to think about in this world besides what I'm going to have for lunch, Daddy, I say. And he looks at me like I am a true mystery. This is what I have for dinner every day. Whatever Mama and Daddy are fixing, and lots of it, unless it's lima beans or Brussels sprouts. Mama and Daddy might ask, would you like some more, Ida B? And most often I will say, yes, please, especially if it's dessert. Otherwise, at dinner time, we just chat about that day and what we want to do tomorrow, and they ask me questions like, what is the verb in the sentence? Mama reluctantly served Ida B another slice of pie. Or, Ida B, can you spell rambunctious and use it in the sentence? And I answer, unless, of course, my mouth is full. Now, talking like that at dinner might seem kind of strange because I've been at other people's houses for meals, and they don't ask each other what planet is closest to the sun, dear, and would you please pass the potatoes? Mouths full or not? The reason we talked like that is because up until last year I was homeschooled. That meant I'd get up in the morning with Mama and Daddy and help with the chores. Then Mama and I would learn math and science, like the 8 times tables, or the parts of a plant, or Ida B, if I give you $20 to go to the store to buy some flour, and before she could get any further, I'd say, which store? It doesn't matter. Well, am I walking? Because I think it's too far for me to walk to the store in town and carry a big sack of flour back with me. Then she'd frown at me and say, oh, Ida B, now let me finish, like I was seriously trying her patience. But I wasn't being a cause for a headache on purpose. It just seemed like she was telling me a story about me, and I wanted to know for sure what was happening so I could make a plan. Because I'll tell you something else about myself. I believe good plans are the best way to maximize fun, avoid disaster, and possibly save the world. I spent a lot of my time making them. So then Mom would say, let's start again. Billy Rivers' mother gave him $20 to go to the store. Who's Billy Rivers? I'd ask. Nobody real, just pretend. Then could he be a girl instead of a boy? And could she be named Delilah? And could she have green glasses that sparkle? Ida B! Okay then, go on. She'd give me the rest of the information. I'd put the numbers down on the paper and get the answer right about 99% of the time. And Mom would say, good job, Ida B, once you get to it. Later on in the afternoon, Daddy would read with me in the big chair or we'd write stories. Most of the time, though, We would just be living like always and talking about things, and then we'd make the solar system out of vegetables. Or Mama would have me figure out how much change we should get at the checkout of the store, and I'd say $7.86. She's very smart, the woman at the cash register would tell Mama. And Mama would say, with only one side of her mouth making a smile. It meant we'd read and talk about the rocks in our valley and the mountain and how they've been around for so long and they change so slowly and they were here way before us and we'll go on after us too. Then we'd go and put my cheek against the big rock that sticks out of the side of the mountain and feel its warmth run into my body. I'd listen hard for its voice. When I finally heard it, it was like a low, gentle hum that went on and on for all of time. And all that stuff I'd learned about rocks made sense. In my head and deep inside me too. Being homeschooled meant I didn't have to ride squish on a smelly old bus or sit still in a stuffy room all day long. Mama made me take a test every year, and every year I'd pass with super brilliant flying colors. And I got to stay right where I liked it best, hanging around with Mama and Daddy, Rufus and Lulu, the trees and the mountain and the snakes and the birds. All day, every day. It seemed like the best plan in the world to me. Chapter 6. When I was 5 years old, I went to school for 2 weeks and 3 days. I was in Miss Myers' kindergarten class at the Ernest B. Lawson Elementary School. Miss Myers had pretty brown curls around her face and smiled a small, sad, happy smile, where your mouth turns up but your eyes look pained almost all of the time. On the first day of school, she stood in the doorway and said hello to every one of us as we came in. She told each of us to find a seat on the big circle that was on the floor, so I did. After everybody was sitting down, she brought a chair over and sat at the top of the circle and said, "Good morning, everyone. I'm your teacher, Miss Myers. The first thing I need to do is start learning your names. So when I call out your name, please raise your hand and say, 'Here,' all right?" We all nodded yes. Emma Aronson, who, when she's in church, is always making her mouth move like she's singing whether she knows the songs or not, was first. "Here," Emma said. "Good morning, Emma," said Miss Myers. And Emma gave a good morning right back. Ida Applewood was next, and Miss Myers looked around the circle to see who that might be. "Here," I said, but I only raised my hand halfway because that was just a part of my name. "Good morning, Ida," Miss Myers smiled and started looking for the next name on her list. Before she could get away from me, I told her so we could get it straight right off. "It's Ida B." Miss Myers looked up with a couple of wrinkles between her eyes. "Excuse me?" "It's Ida B," I repeated. "My name is Ida B." She stared down at her list again with an expression of deep pondering and some displeasure. But after a few seconds, that look of calm and sure delight people get when they figure out they're right and they're itching to tell you all about it spread across her face. "Now, Ida," she said to me, "I know that at home your family might call you by a nickname like Ida B, and that's just fine at home. But in this classroom, we're going to use our given names, not nicknames." Then she gazed around the circle with that sad, happy smile. "Does everyone understand that?" And all of the kids nodded their heads and smiled right back, except me. "Now let's continue," she said. "Samuel Barton was next. But I was stuck back at Ida Applewood, and I stayed there for the entire list of names and good mornings. Because anywhere in the world we'd ever been, Ida Applewood was Mama. And any time I'd been around people for more than a little while, and a bit it took to get to know somebody, I was Ida B. So I was wondering and worrying about how my head was going to remember to look up or say, 'Yes, ma'am,' whenever Miss Myers called out Ida, when an even bigger problem occurred to me. I realized that maybe having this new name that wasn't mine wouldn't just be for today or this year, but it might be my not for real and not anything like me, but I'm stuck with it name for every school day for the rest of my life. That I knew was a whole lot of days of being Ida and not being Ida B. So many days of being Ida that I might forget what Ida B was like. And with that thought, a bad feeling came over me that started in my stomach and traveled out my legs and arms and ended up in my toes, my fingers, and even my tongue. Like everything was being tightened up and shrunk down and squeezed into a too tiny space. I looked out the window and saw all of that sunshine and air and room to move. I swear I could hear the brook calling to me over that distance and through those closed-up windows. "Come on home and play, Ida B. I'm waiting for you. Come on, come on, come on." A powerful longing came over me to walk out of that room, go outside, and let that voice lead me home. But I'd promised Mama 9 times just that morning I'd be good and follow directions. So I sat in my spot in the circle with my hands in my lap. I kept thinking, though, that this was not anything like how Mama and Daddy had told me school was going to be. I believed that was not a good sign. There was a rabbit in a cage in the room, but we couldn't pet it until it was time. There were books on the shelves, but we couldn't read them until it was time. There was a big playground with slides and swings and balls, but we couldn't play on it till it was time. There were lots of kids, but we couldn't talk till you know when. Miss Myers, I finally asked, when is time? Pardon me? When is time for all the fun stuff? Well, Ida, she said, there are different times for different things. I'll let you know when it's time for each thing. Why don't you just relax and enjoy the day? Now, even when I was little, I liked to make plans. I wanted to know what was coming so I could stay away from the bad stuff as much as possible and get ready for the good stuff. Could you tell me now so I can make a schedule? I asked. Well, in 1½ seconds, Miss Myers was standing right over me. Her mouth was straight across and her hands were on her hips. I have seen that look on Grumps before, and it has never meant anything good. Ida, she told me, trust me, we will talk about a schedule when it's time. And there were those words again. Right then, I was wondering if I got in a class for bad children who needed fixing, and my punishment included losing my name and never being able to make a plan again. But Emma Aronson was in the class too, and she was every minute of every day very well behaved. I could feel a wallop of rude and ornery coming up my throat and fighting to get out of my mouth. But I had also promised Mama 7 times while we drove to school that I would be polite. Yes, ma'am, I finally said through my teeth because they were keeping the rudeness inside my mouth. Then I made a schedule for the rest of the day, with the only piece of information I knew for sure, what the clock would look like when it was time to go home. I kept staring at the clock over the door, watching the little hand get closer and closer to the 3 until the bell rang for dismissal. Mama was waiting for me at the edge of the parking lot at the end of the day, wearing a big smile. Now the real Ida B would have been grinning and running down to meet her. Ida B would have jumped in the truck, bounced in the seat 5 times, told Mama about her plans for the afternoon that would make her too busy to do too many chores, and rode all the way home with her forehead pressed against the window. She'd be looking so forward to getting there. But I'd been Ida all day long. Miss Myers' Ida, who sat still, stayed in line, kept her hands to herself, and didn't have a single tiny drop of fun. I felt stiff and tired and cramped into a too small body with a too small name, so I just walked with slow, small steps to Mama. When I finally got close, I stopped, looked up at her and said, Mama, this will not do. What will not do, Ida B? She asked. And when she said my name, it was like I was back in myself for the first time that day. I felt my body loosen up and tingle like it was waking up. Too many rules and not enough time for fun, I told her. Well, she said, let's get in the truck and you can tell me about it. So I sort of half leapt into the truck. And on the way home, I told Mama about the day, about Miss Myers' pretty curls and her sad, happy smile, the invisible